weren't here. Hello, and welcome to the Shipper Update. I'm here with our lead economist, Anthony Smith, and it looks like you're going to talk about some housing starts, Anthony. Now, I know it's been a hot market. Is it changed?
Nah.
Nah.
So you're exactly right. We're going to talk about housing starts, even going to get into a little bit of permits a little bit later on. But just yesterday, we was here with Andrew Cox. I think it was yesterday. The days kind of all merged together, but we're talking to Andrew Cox.
I don't even know what year it is.
What year is it? We're talking to Andrew Cox about home purchasing sentiment index and what's going on there. We saw that 4 out of the 6 components of that were positive, but one of the big negative ones were people thinking if this is now a good time to make a home purchase.
Wait, are you talking about feelings?
Talking about feelings, Zach. Talking about feelings. They matter, all right? So when looking at overall housing starts, we saw that there was a blip up in the latest report showing that there was an increase on a month-over-month basis. There was a 3.6 increase, so this number just came out at 8:30 this morning. Looking at that overall, there wasn't an increase across the board. We did see a 22% decline in the Northeast. I mean, these numbers are going to be a bit volatile when we're looking at some of these regions. Northeast is also one of the more mature markets, as we always talk about. It's going to be much more prevalent for multifamily units, which also saw a bit of a decline there. But looking at Midwest, we saw that there was a 29% increase. The South had a 3.8% increase. And we saw a nice little bump in the West of 1%. So we are seeing gains overall throughout most of the country.
I mean, that seems like a very uneven mix there. You got 29% in the Midwest, which the Midwest, isn't that the biggest?
The South is the biggest.
The South is the biggest. Okay.
Midwest isn't one of the biggest, but it's one of the largest growing. I think throughout the pandemic, we saw a lot of people leave from the West Coast, California mostly,
right,
to places in the Midwest and the South, looking at Texas.
Weird. Going from
Austin.
California to the Midwest?
Yeah.
It's normally the other way around.
Usually it's the other way around, but you know, you start getting into these regulations that a lot of people weren't happy with, not happy with the cost of living in California. If you know, you want to go out, that's one of the big things of California, and you can't even do that. Now you're just at home paying for this cost of living that you could really live much cheaper in the Midwest or in the South. So Austin, Texas has kind of been one of those areas that people are now eyeing.
Yeah, Austin's a popular city right now.
It is.
You got the Texas, and all the kids are there. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about, okay, so the Midwest is growing extremely fast. The Southeast has been red hot.
Yeah.
Even for the regular freight. So I mean, a lot of the lumber comes out of the Southeast. Am I correct?
That's right. Southern yellow pine. That's one of the main areas where it's going to grow. Georgia is going to be an area for that. So that's going to be an area where we see a lot of those lumber mills and everything like that. But we are starting to see a slight come down. I don't even want to call it come down because it's been so high for lumber prices, but we're seeing lumber prices edge down just slightly. I think around 20%, which is a huge number, but when it's up over 300%, around 300% year over year, it's not really quite that much of a decline, but we are seeing some downward movement. If we look at our next chart, we're going to have permits there, and in permits, we see that there was a subtle downward movement, not too concerning with that. One of the things throughout starts, of course, we care about those initial movements of building product materials, lumber, things like that, siding, moving throughout the economy, or throughout the country, I should say, through flatbed or whatever. Trailer type usually is flatbed, but those downstream impacts are also a big thing as well. We're looking at permits that's going to be indicative of future housing activity. And so that downward movement isn't quite indicative that there's going to be, you know, subtle drops or sudden drops in housing overall. But more so that maybe keep a close eye on it if it does move downward month after month after month. I say 3 months of downward movement, okay, start to kind of look at this as a potential trend.
And this is just 1 month, right?
Just 1 month.
Just 1 month, but we're still looking at it. I mean, it's still extremely high.
Exactly.
I mean, and these are permits, so that means that we're talking about, you know, downstream, you know, a few months in the future, potentially, you know, we have that big spike in the early part of the winter, and I'm assuming that's because everybody's trying to get in front of the warmer weather when they start to build things. So is it not indicative? Tell me about the seasonality here. Are we seeing a little bit of seasonality, kind of front loading these permits so everybody can get out in the summer?
There was a lot of front loading, especially a lot of pulling forward of materials. Lumber, of course, going to be a common theme here, but even builders are pulling forward appliances. And so we did see durable goods and those moving throughout the economy as well through freight being pulled forward because there's been a shortage for those appliances, and builders are trying to get those in as fast as possible because they know there's going to be a backlog of that. Builders are also foregoing some building projects because of these increased prices, and they're struggling. Some of them are to get loans for some of these prices. So builders have to either cover these costs themselves and say, hey, I'm going to be able to sell this house by this date. I need a loan to be able to really kind of put the house in place now. The increased prices, they're getting difficulties or having to put more equity into their game just to kind of put these houses up. So some builders are foregoing, or the starts, just brick and ground excavation is a thing, but without actually putting up the frame of material. So there's actually starts without actually full completions. So that's a whole nother area to kind of look at. But housing starts, momentum's continuing to flow despite the ongoing limitations.
Well, there you go. Anthony Smith, thank you so much for that. Yeah, housing starts, the housing sector, lumber, all of it cranking right now, and it looks like it's going to continue throughout the summer at least. So